Okay. Hello, Olly. Thank you for joining me. So this is Olly. Olly is a client of mine. We've been working on and off since about 2022 it is actually. Ollie's done two psilocybin journeys with me. We've worked together for integration, a bit of coaching. Olly is an entrepreneur, a father. He's an expat living in Spain. And we have a lot of rich conversations around things like spirituality, authenticity, how it's changed for you, how it's changed for me. We kind of have a lot in common. And I thought it'd be great just to get you on and chat about your experience. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
So first, I want you to cast your mind all the way back to 2022. I know it seems like a really long time ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we first started working together?
No, what I do remember is not the set of circumstances that brought me to you, but the general overarching feeling of what was going on in my life at the time. The sort of the chaos, shall we say, that I was looking to unpick. So that's what I remember, the sort of the why, not the when.
Yeah. Back then, you just mentioned there was chaos. There was something you were looking for. So what was 2022 Olly seeking? What were you looking for?
He was looking, he thought he was broken and he wanted to be fixed. He wanted to be, and I hope this isn't a family friendly podcast, but he wanted to be unfucked, wanted to unfuck himself. It was I say the end, but near the end of a long line of desperate attempts to try and, as I say, sort of fix myself and stop the uncertainty, the pain, the suffering, everything that goes along with it at that time in my life. So that's how I came to you for sure.
So you wanted to unfuck yourself. So do you remember what it was that felt fucked at the time?
Do you know what? So I think the majority of my life, I'd always felt, I suppose the word was broken, or I didn't fit, I wasn't right, outcast, outside, all of the pile it all into one confused bundle of me and how I felt. So it was, as I say, off the back of a troublesome childhood, crazy backstory involving a biological father that I never knew and got in contact with in my early 30s at the time as well. I was just about to have a child. So there was a lot going on. And I felt it was either, even though I already felt broken, I felt it was either break completely, shatter into a million pieces, or try and put myself together. And, it became clear that I needed some external influence or help, that I wasn't doing it on my own. After a long, long time of trying and failing, I needed some backup. And here you came with all your ammunition. So,
I love being backup. That's amazing. So you mentioned, you'd been trying for ages. So why come to somebody like me who's a little bit of a random niche? I think back then I was just an integration coach, wasn't I?
Yep.
So why come to somebody like me and not to your classic kind of psychotherapist or therapist?
So the forays I'd had with therapy had been primarily counselling. In the environment, in the sense where it was me just speaking. Now, I felt I knew what was wrong, but again, I wanted to be fixed. I wanted someone to say, well, if you do this, this, and this, then you'll feel better. So I didn't want to talk. I'd done enough talking to myself in my head. I've been over it a million times. So I needed direction. That's what I was looking for. As I say, at the time, I thought that I wanted to be fixed. Spoiler alert, it turns out there's no fixing that needs to be done at all. You're not broken, but I'm sure we'll get to that. So I'd done therapy after some stints with some terrible experiences with sort of substance abuse and alcohol. I'd been to some AA sessions. Not that I would have classified myself as an alcoholic, but it was almost shock therapy. I put myself in these positions to try and shock myself out of these behaviors that I'd adopted and that were, playing out in this sort of negative cycle. So, as I say, I realized that me on my own wasn't cutting it and I needed help. In terms of the psychedelic side of things, my first foray into psychedelics was actually microdosing. And that's how I came to it. And all I remember is that when I've had these circumstances where I'd taken these small amounts, I just felt better. I felt better than I had done when I wasn't taking them.
However, was it mushrooms?
It was acid. It was
Acid.
tabs. This is rudimentary. Me with some nail scissors clipping out tiny parts. That obviously has so many pitfalls. One of which sat in an office in London as a manager at the head of the office, and the laptop and the computer in front of me starts to melt. So I realised that the dosage here and the dosing is probably a little bit off. And I was also quite aware that with the issues I previously had with substances and, my inability to control the amount I took and when I took them, that I didn't want to become reliant on psychedelics. So again, I was looking for that professional help. I needed someone who knew what they were doing and who could guide me and assist me, and lead to that continued better feeling, shall we say. So then I found you.
Yeah. Well, there we go. So there's this whole thing about I need to be fixed, right? And I think so many people can relate to this, where we're struggling with certain things, whether it's substance abuse, depression, whatever it might be. And we always think, we're actually conditioned to think I'm the problem.
Yes.
There's absolutely something wrong with me. We're never taught to question the fucked up environment that we live in, and that maybe we're having just a very normal reaction to that. It's always, I'm fucked up, I'm the problem. And I think with that comes a lot of shame as well, and a lot of like self-doubt and all of those things as well. And I wanted to also go into this story when we first met, because I think you came to an integration circle that I used to hold, these kind of free integration circles on Meetup. And it was a great place for people to connect and talk about psychedelics. Now I stopped doing them because the space would get a little bit abused. And this is one of those examples. There was a dude that used to come to my circles, and this was the first time he came, and you were there as well. And I felt really sorry for you, because you'd come there trying to, make connections, maybe meet like-minded people. And this guy just totally hijacked the space. And he was literally filling the chat the whole time with these, it was preaching is the only word I can use for it. And he kind of had himself set up behind a pulpit. It was like a cross between a pulpit and a DJ booth.
He looked like a crazy little wizard under a spotlight. He was deliberately sat in a pitch black room and had set up the lighting so it was him. Yeah.
It was like a disco, like a shaman at a disco. And he was there, like spotlight on himself, quite literally. And every time he got the chance to speak, he would just totally hijack the space. He would monologue for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. And this was, in the early days where my boundaries maybe weren't as good. But during that time, I think there were about 8 people in the circle, and everybody else was very polite and very quiet. And they were just like looking at him and wide-eyed and listening to everything he had to say. And you dropped off the call. And I was like, oh shit, he's dropped off the call. How embarrassing. This is Olly's first integration circle. There's this mad guy here. And I just thought I just thought you were like, oh, this is boring, I'm leaving. And then we had a session, and I brought it up with you, and I was like, why did you leave the space? And I remember you said to me, I was so upset with myself because I got angry. And you said everybody else was just so kind and accepting, and I was the only one that had a problem with it. And you was giving yourself such a hard time because you got angry, not at this guy who was hijacking the space and behaving like in a really inappropriate way. It was about you. So I think this really connects to that I'm fucked up, this is my fault kind of a thing. So what happened in our session? Do you remember?
I mean, I just want to highlight something there as well, how confidence is no substitute for competence, right? Because this guy clearly didn't know what his only qualification was, that he had obviously just done way too much acid in his lifetime, and that was it. He had a master's in taking psychedelics for all the wrong reasons, probably. But like I said, because of the way he presented himself and the clarity in which he spoke, you could see the other members of the session where some almost fawning of him and starting to ask more questions, and because he would answer them with such confidence once again, it's like, oh, this guy clearly knows what he's doing. And just as a bit of a side note or a caveat, I think this is one of the scary things about the sort of, I don't want to call it industry, but do you know what I mean, the psychedelic community or industry as a whole, is that we have people out there who don't have the necessary experiences, qualifications, understanding to be able to, lead these people or help people, shall we say. But they're just confident, and it sounds like they know what they're going on about. And a lot of the people who are coming to these, you know, these meetups, these integration circles, these experiences, they are looking for help. A lot of these people are vulnerable people, and they're looking for someone who can lead them. And the scary thing is that someone that's just got a loud voice or speaks clearly or loudly, sounds like they know what they're on about, you can see how it creates a following. And it's almost this cultish aspect where you've got this charismatic, you know, often male sort of head of the group, and it creates a following, and it really shouldn't. But in terms of going back to how, like you said, how it made me feel. So, like you said, I felt uncomfortable. It cringed me out. He was making me feel awkward. I thought he was just a weirdo. I just thought he was a weird guy. But I turned all of that back on myself. I was like, you're so judgmental. Look at you judging people again. Therefore, you're a bad person. I just made myself feel awful. And then it snowballs. I was like, you can't even be part of this integration circle, this wonderful community of like-minded individuals. So therefore, you're now excluded from this community, which was going to be the savior. This was what was going to raise you up. You were going to get, you know, fully invested into that. And now you can't be even part of that because you're fill in the blank. You're useless. You're a piece of shit. All that sort of stuff. And this, for me, that I remember that session clearly with you, because this is one of the biggest breakthroughs for me, was that it's okay not to like people. Like, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, like it's fine. And
it's okay not to like people. And also, because I remember, because you dropped off the call, you didn't see what happened afterwards. And I threw him out. I threw him out the room because he was just sucking all the air out of the room. He was disrespectful to the space. There are always agreements in the space of how much you can talk, how long you can talk for, to make sure everybody gets to speak. And it wasn't respected. And
well, I think you said, I think you said he was even joining other meetups under different aliases.
He was. So after I threw him out, he would come back under an alias. And as soon as the cameras would come on, there would DJ, you know, Guru would be back again, and I would boot him out because, you know, it's not his space, and you have to respect the spaces that you're in. And there was a lot of spiritual narcissism going on there. He'd obviously swallowed every spiritual text under the sun and was just regurgitating. But that's not connection. That's trying to have power over other people. And as you said earlier, the vulnerability of people, particularly in integration circles, because they may have just come off the back of a psychedelic experience.
I don't think what people need is a savior or a messiah. And it comes back to the way you do things is so refreshing. It really is holding space. Holding space has got so much baggage to it these days. It's almost corny, you know, holding space. But it's literally what you do. You know, you are just there. Like, it's almost the term I use, like backup, spiritual backup almost. It's like, look, you know, I'm here to just gently guide you, as opposed to forcibly, you know, make this go a certain direction or a certain way.
I think that you and I have this in common, where I call us like spiritual boomerangs, because I think when you enter that space, particularly the new age space, some people are like frisbees, some people are like boomerangs. They get in there and they just either keep going like a frisbee, or they get to a certain point and they go, what the fucking fuck is this? And they spin around and they come all the way back again. And that's what's happened to me. And I think that's a little bit what happened to you, because, you know, you are a seeker. You came to psychedelics for a reason. Most people that come to psychedelics are seeking something, because we are missing something in our modern day world. We're missing, call it spiritual connection, call it mystical connection. We've had it since the beginning of time, and we are missing it. And I think people are trying to fill that hole, that spiritual void. And the new age, you know, community is one easy way to do that, because you were seeking something, right? So what do you think that you were seeking from all of that, from going to those spaces? What were you looking for?
At the time, I was definitely seeking some form of community, because I felt lost. You know, I felt alone. I felt isolated. I felt lonely. Back then, I wanted to be part of something. And this was where the shame was piled on, because I was joining these communities. I was going to these meetups, and they were just making me feel gross. Now, not because they necessarily were gross. Some of them were, but just because the way I am, whether it's that I don't actually perform well in these group settings. I just don't. Okay. And that's fine. But at the time, I didn't know that. So, you know, when I'm in a man's circle and I'm being told I need to stare in the eyes of this man for 5 minutes and then laugh uncontrollably and hug each other, and I'm questioning, why do I feel weird? Is this not weird? Like, everyone's like, no, this is full normal. So then I would leave that and I'd be like, oh God, I failed. You know, it was like a test and I failed it again. And you've got two options. You either give up and you don't go again. But then, okay, well, then you're just resigning yourself to being broken. Okay. Or you go, well, I need to go in deeper. I need to go harder. And this is what I think some people do. And this is a scary thing. It's like you speak to some people who have never, maybe taken a microdose of mushrooms, but they've gone to a 7-day ayahuasca session with 60 Cambo sessions and some acro yoga mixed in just for good measure. It's crazy.
Something that people gravitate towards, and they do have the same story as you. It's like, oh, I'm such a bad person. I don't fit into these spaces. What's wrong with me? I can't be spiritual. But you said something there that was so telling. And I don't even know if you said it. You said, I don't perform well in those spaces. Performance is the word, because
interesting.
if you want to fit in, there's a difference between belonging and fitting in, right? If you want to fit in, you have to perform. You have to go with the group think, the group speak, the group dress. And this is not necessarily explicit. What I noticed in these communities, there's a lot of implicit rules. And if you don't follow those rules, you are outcast in a very subtle way. And because there's this whole surface level, no judgment, no judgment, no judgment. We don't judge here. We don't judge here. That's like, yeah, as long as you follow the rules. And what I found wasn't welcome was me, really. I swear, I make jokes. I have a dark sense of humor. I don't dress like, in white floaty robes, although I did go through a phase of that. And it wasn't accepted. When I started unmasking and showing up as myself in those spaces, I for sure wasn't accepted in those spaces, even if it wasn't explicit. And it's just like any other group. It's like the popular kids at school. It's the same thing. It's groupthink. It's group mentality. So I think a lot of us go out there looking for community, but actually there's a big price to pay for fitting in to groups.
I think sometimes the reason we're looking for community is it's that substitute because you don't feel comfortable, on your own. And I think that's, for me personally, that was one of the biggest keys that I had to unlock, was just being comfortable with myself. And then when you feel comfortable with yourself and in your own isolation, it's almost dangerous because it can get a little bit addictive, and you start to enjoy your own company, and you don't need that community and you don't need the validation of others. But because there is such a focus on this community piece, I think that's where people, again, run the risk of this sort of alienation.
There's something really interesting about isolation and how it can be a bit addictive when you get used to your own company. Yes. I think it's important to differentiate between community versus codependence and what community actually is, because community, as it's been throughout history, has not been a little, what do they call it? Echo chamber of people who dress the same, look the same, think the same. That's not what community actually is. Community is actually whoever's in the village, right? It's old people, it's young people, it's people with kids, people without kids. And authenticity, right? If you're being yourself, you're never going to fit into something with such rigid parameters. And I think we always hear this phrase, you can't heal alone, you have to heal in community. I think we need other people, we need to be in relationship, but we don't need to be in codependent communities where everybody's changing who they are in order to be accepted. I want to talk a little bit about psychedelics, because you and I, we've done 2 journeys together, 2 pretty high dose psilocybin journeys. And, yours is a journey that I see, you came from such a place of struggling with self-love, would be a nice way to put it. Self-hate might be a true way to put it, because I think
I'm very good at
that in common, that we've, really hated ourselves into, near oblivion at some points. And to come from that to where you are now, I think nothing short of miraculous. So nothing changed. Olly didn't change, but the way Olly related to Olly changed a lot. And I think I'd love to talk about how psychedelics maybe helped you with that.
I always thought the psychedelics were going to give me something. Okay. I was going to download this ancient knowledge, this secret wisdom, and I was going to be a new person. And it's such a paradox that it was the complete opposite. Like, in a way, I haven't really gained anything. Like, as I said before, everything was already there. I've actually shed things. I've got rid of things that, didn't serve me. But it's that 1% shift of your baseline. It's not what I think everyone is chasing. What I was chasing is that you take the heroic dose, or you go to the ayahuasca session and boom, you are fixed. You stroll out of there, you float off your cloud, and you're good to go. That doesn't happen. That's you know that's not going to happen. For me, it's that gradual, that very, very small shift. But 1% out of only 100 in a lifetime is a huge shift. And this is what ties into the integration piece. I think I've said this to you before. For me, the session itself and the experience, the taking of the psychedelics, that's, I mean, it's fun. Sometimes it's not fun. It's harrowing, but I don't really take much from that or look too deep into that. Off the times we've done it, there has been a clear message that later on has, you know, shown some prominence. But for me, the work has all been done prior and post, and without that, you really, really run the risk of losing everything that you got from that experience in that session, because the world comes at such a fast pace, you know, whether it's social media, current affairs, our own social commitments, work commitments. It's very easy to walk away from that session, pick up your phone, be sucked straight in, and you can lose what you've gained very, very quickly with psychedelics, very quickly, I think, unless it's fully integrated.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And, you know, you spoke about how you had these expectations, like, I'm going to come out a guru, I'm going to come out with the secrets of the universe. I think that's so common. It's so common, and there's nothing wrong with it. Of course we want all our trauma to be healed in one go. Of course we want all the pain to go away. Of course we do. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that with self-compassion and say, okay, maybe I have got these quite crazy expectations, but that's all a part of the preparation process with me. We really get that all out in the open so that it's not hidden away, you know, you're not ashamed squirreling it away in the subconscious. So yeah, just to speak to that part about the preparation, and how important was that for you to shift from expectation to intention?
I mean, the first thing I want to make clear is that it's, you really get into the root of why it is you want to do it, you know, and what it is you need. Because often, I mean, for me, again, I can only speak for myself, but when I entered into the initial conversation with yourself, or you know, the preparation prior to the experience, I've come into it in confidence. Oh, I know what I need. Like, I know exactly what's going on. I know what I need. And then very quickly, session one, it's like, okay, honey, take a seat. You know, that's very nice, but no. I need you to look over here, which often is what you've been avoiding. And yeah, that's where the gold is. You know, that's I can't highlight enough that that's where the special stuff is the before and the after. And it's just some of the cues, some of the, even just before, you know, that short time we sit before we have the experience, and you will highlight subjects, topics, discussions that we've had prior, because then I've got those as anchors in the experience, and I can relate back to those if I need be, or they're just sort of floating in the subconscious. And it's almost these little checkpoints, you know, that you can use as that guide, as opposed to not having any prior preparation, diving head first and then being told what you need to do, or you know, how this should work. Instead, the path has already been laid, and you can walk it, you might not walk it, but I think a lot of the work is done in the subconscious. Even now, you know, months and years after sessions, it's still unfolding. You know, the work's still being done, right?
I think it's still unfolding though, because you laid the foundations, and all of that stuff that we do before the journey is what I call the scaffolding. It's the scaffolding for the psyche. It's like, I say this all the time, I'm going to say it again, going into a psychedelic journey without preparation is abusive to the psyche. I really think it is. It's like, imagine you're going to have a baby and you just cut out the entire pregnancy, and you go from, you know, pregnant to birth straight away. There's no preparation time. How horrible would that be? How traumatic would that be for the body?
As you know, I've done it with a friend. I went and attended an experience with a friend who'd never done psychedelics before.
Tell us about that.
Okay, let's go. Booked in with a good friend. He's a bit older than me. As I say, never done psychedelics before. So we get there. There was, I think, 3 other guys. So 5 in total. There was the guy, the dreadlocked guy in his loose-fitting robes, and his helper. And it became very clear early on there was obviously some romantic things going on, and that even unfolded throughout the night. So get there. Wonderful. I'm in this converted mosque. As I say, Ganesh is on the wall. There's crystals everywhere. I'm ready for this. This is going to be the one. This is going to be the experiences as it all buzzing. So he just tells us that he's going to take us away individually, have a quick chat with us, and from that chat he can decide on the dosage for each one. Again, brilliant. Really taking the time to consider me and what I need. Very brief chat. The red flags probably should have been rising straight away, just from the sort of glossing over things very quickly. We then sit in a circle, and what he announces is that he's decided that we're all just going to take the same amount. It sounds like we're all pretty similar in terms of either our backgrounds, what we've done before. Again, bear in mind, the guy sat next to me, I know, has never touched psychedelics, but he announces, yeah, we're going to all just take 5 grams and it'll be great. Okay, Cool. I'm starting to enjoy myself because I've had, experience with you, I think, once before. And again, I've dabbled. So I'm like, okay, this is, it feels somewhat familiar. It got intense very quickly. And obviously it's a large dose. So things started to get intense, just even for myself. I curled up in my covers and turned to the wall and just decided that I was going to find my safety in the small tiling on the wall. I remember it very clearly. Then the screams started. So there was a gentleman there, a Moroccan man, and he started to scream. It transpired that he was actually there the night before. They'd given him 13 grams of mushrooms, but it hadn't done anything. So he decided to spend the next night and try again. And it worked this time. So he was screaming. It's like he was possessed. And it was actually at that point they told us, it's okay. This is an exorcism. But he said it with relish. It was joy. This is great. He's having an exorcism. Let's all watch. So we've been asked to turn and watch the guy having a breakdown. They then proceeded to pour all types of concoctions over him, blow smoke in almost every orifice you could blow smoke in. I'm looking over at my friend who is also now starting to have a breakdown because of the situation. Anyway, that unfolds, that goes on for a while. The next thing you know, the group leader, shall we say, brings out his guitar and thinks now is a good time for a rendition of Oasis Wonderwall. At this point, I had no option but to just laugh. The absurdity of the situation was insane. Now, I ended up having a great time, not because it did anything for me spiritually, anything for my own growth. I just found it all so absurd to the point that it was quite funny. Okay, I mean, it was almost cliche. When the guitar came out, I thought, here we are, the guitar around the fire. We've reached the pinnacle of spiritualism. But we then left. We left about, I can't remember, maybe 1, 2 o'clock. And I turned to my mate and said, what did you think? And I'll never forget the look on his face. He was terrified. He was a mid-40s-year-old man. He was absolutely terrified. Since then, understandably, he's never touched psychedelics again. So that was his one opportunity to use psychedelics or to begin that exploration. That's not going to happen again because of this poorly led experience.
You had experiences before. You were able to resource yourself. You said you found a tile on the wall. You've turned your body. You went into a protective posture. So all of that is your nervous system trying to find safety. Is your body doing what an animal's body does when it's in danger, right? It's going to curl up. It's going to go towards a wall, all of that. Now, I mean, it makes me angry, to be totally honest with you, because unfortunately, this is the majority. And I know that because I'm an integration specialist and because people come to me after these horrific so-called ceremonies. And I find it really scary. I do find it really scary. And I'm really sorry for your friend because that fear, that nervous system trauma can be healed, but he's not going to want to because now he's terrified. If he did, why would he want to go back to something that was so horrible? And what I notice is people will blame it on the medicine. They'll say, well, mushrooms are too scary, or mushrooms are awful, or cannabis, or whatever it might be, right? But it's never about the medicine. It's always about the context and the setting and the preparation. Those are pillars that absolutely need to be there, particularly if we're dealing with trauma. And everybody has the capacity for trauma to arise in a psychedelic journey. So the Moroccan guy that you talked about, it sounds like he was going through a trauma. Some kind of trauma would have come up for him. He's terrified. He's screaming. And what he's getting is a complete lack of nervous system attunement, a complete lack of the correct kind of care that he needs. He needs containment. He needs support. And that support needs...
Just as a terrifying but somewhat funny side note, they actually gave him a tambourine. So that was that. They decided that it was a good time to give him a tambourine. Yeah.
So this is just a lack of trauma training. That's what this comes down to, is they haven't even realized that that's what's happening. They've gone, this is an exorcism, let's slap a spiritual label on it.
It was only one session, and this guy was running these sessions by the sound of it every day, and he was fully booked. So you've got a long list, hundreds if not thousands of people, and this is just one guy doing one session. And this was the thing that was supposed to do you good as well. And like I said, you're then left with these two options. You either give up, you don't do it anymore, okay? You excommunicate yourself from these experiences and from this community, or you dive in even more and you go further and you say, maybe I need a double session. Maybe I need to go, I did it wrong. I'll go back again.
I did it wrong. That's the thing, isn't it? I think when it happened to me for years, hiring people. And the thing is, we're trying to help ourselves. And that's what breaks my heart, is because if I look back at myself a decade ago, I was so desperately trying to help myself. I was so desperately trying to heal. I was dropping thousands on hiring like a therapist in the Netherlands to come and sit for me, and I was being abused. They weren't respecting my boundaries. They didn't ask me about boundaries. There was no prep. They would bring random people into the room during my journey. They would touch me I could tell you a million stories. I won't get into it, but this is the norm. And what is it that you need? What makes you feel safe and comfortable?
Again, it's the preparation beforehand. Like once we've done that, I haven't needed anything apart from just your presence, right? And snacks. What is it? I think it's on the hour, every hour. I believe on the hour, every hour.
I need a snack.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly that. 100%. Yeah, I need to be fed and watered like a gerbil.
But that's it. Literally cared for, fed and watered. Yeah.
Just looked after. I personally haven't needed absolutely anything, and that's only because of the preparation beforehand.
Well, the point of the preparation is to equip you. The point of the preparation, you get a course, you get one-to-one sessions. The whole point of it is that by the time we get to the journey, you can hold your own hand through it. And that's not to say I don't do anything, because I'm there and some people need me and I'm there and I'm equipped and I'm skilled to help. But when you don't need me, it's like, great, because what you've done there is you've created this really strong bond with yourself. You've created this new relationship with yourself, because your journeys haven't been easy. Like, they're not always plain sailing, but you are so equipped to be able to resource yourself through that. And for me, that's infinitely more powerful than somebody running in to save you and holding your hand, when actually you can do that for yourself. And it's not this, well, I'm doing everything on my own, I'm isolating. It's not that. It's actually repairing a relationship with yourself. And it's connecting to your, if you call it higher self, whatever you want to call it, you're kind of connecting your human self and your higher self, whatever you want to call that. And I think that's where I've seen some like magnificent healing happen with people.
Again, and I want to make it clear, like when I say you don't need anything, like, oh, I need you there, I would not want to do it on my own. Like, let's just make that clear. That doesn't mean everyone should just do the prep and then not have the assistance while you're there. Like, that is a terrifying thought for me, because again, it's because I trust you, because we've done the work. And I'm not saying this now after years, because we've done those sessions beforehand. I have someone there I can trust, so I can open and I can let the medicine do its work. Okay, the barriers are lowered, okay, and it can enter freely and sort of do what it needs to do. So yeah, as I said, the trust that I have in you, because again, it's not, my answer to you was, what do you need? It's the preparation, but also, no, I needed someone I can trust, because I couldn't do the preparation and then just call someone and say, hey, is it all right if you can come just sit with me while I take a load of mushrooms? Like, that wouldn't work either. So I think it's twofold. Yeah, it's the preparation and creating a relationship with someone you trust. And if people out there are doing this or are going to do it and they decide not to do it with you, which is a poor decision, but if they do it with someone else and then in the preparation part it doesn't feel right, just stop immediately. I think you have to. We don't listen to our intuition enough these days. I think that's something we've lost. It's almost like a lost art, is really listening to our gut and our intuition and following that. And if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not.
Back in the days, in tribal days, it wouldn't have been someone who comes from another tribe and is a complete stranger and holds space for people. It's somebody within the community. And I think for you, my intuition is that a human to human connection is very important for you. And I think if I sat there with my therapeutic mask on, never telling you anything about myself and just like and nodding and doing all this stuff, I think that might freak you out.
Like you said, if it was with a therapist, I would be a bit like, oh God, I hope I'm doing this right. And can I react? Like you've said to me, like, if you need to cry, cry. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to sing, sing. Like, that's fine. But if I was told that by someone who I didn't know or trust, they could say, yeah, it's fine to cry or scream. But the part of me that, whatever part it is, wouldn't cry and wouldn't scream because that fear of being judged, because I don't know you.
And it's such a vulnerable position, isn't it? Doing a journey like that is so super vulnerable.
For the people, and the majority of people are going out there and doing these with complete strangers. As you say, you've done it many times. Like, that just gives me the shivers just to think about that. Like, that terrifies me.
Substances can be amazing and life-changing, and I wouldn't be hit without them. And you know, everything around the journey is the journey. What you take into it, who you're around, whoever you work with is going to be priming you for a certain type of journey as well. I see a lot of people who are reading maybe the stories about psychedelics changed my life, and they think it's just about the substance. So they're going and taking, for example, like 10 grams of mushrooms in their bedroom.
Yeah.
All their trauma comes to the surface. They might have a mate there, or they might be on their own. There's nobody holding space. There's no co-regulation, which means your nervous system co-regulates with another nervous system. This happening to us right now. It happens to humans all the time, whether you choose to or not. So you need another grounded nervous system in the room who and that will physically make you feel safe, right? This is a physiological thing. So they're doing this, all the trauma's coming up. They're having an absolutely horrible, horrible time. So people come to me all the time after bad trips. And when I say bad trip, I mean horrendous, like nervous system blown off the charts. You know, we need months and months of recovery. Too much too soon, everything coming up at once. It's too much to hold. And that's not to say psychedelics are bad. It's saying we're not working with them respectfully or correctly, because your psyche is something that's so fragile, and it's so intelligent. Like, it's got all these locked doors with keys over. What we're going to do is we're going to blow all those doors open at the same time. I'm just glad we're having this conversation about harm reduction. And for me, if you're going to choose between preparation and integration, throw the integration out the window. Preparation all the way. And we're only hearing about integration. Nobody's even talking about preparation.
Yeah.
So if I could choose, I wonder what's your perspective on that?
I completely agree. I was actually thinking about this earlier. I haven't thought about this before, but when we were talking about, you know, quite a few times in this conversation, I've mentioned the preparation prior, and because the integration comes, you know, fairly close to the experience. You know, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks, and you might have a month after. But like I said, I think it unfolds for so long in ways that you might not ever understand. But it's doing its work, and I think integration doesn't necessarily mean understanding. Like, it's not about, right, okay, let's put this on a piece of paper and see, I got better there and I became, you know, more aware over here. Like, no, just let it be. The work definitely is prior for me. And like,
it's finding what works for you, and it's also listening to your nervous system. I can't say it enough. Psychedelics don't really care that much about your nervous system. They're going to give you what they give you. You're signing up for it no matter what. And we are a little bit addicted to healing by suffering. We do think that because we had a really hard time and it was awful, yay, that must be healing. Is it though? Because what the nervous system needs is gentleness and care, and kind of the opposite of that. So there's a bit of a paradox happening there. And for me, I love low doses because it doesn't knock you off your axis, you know, and you still get a big digestible chunk of content. When I'm talking low doses, you know, I'm talking less than a gram, but I'm really sensitive. So for me, that is a day. It's a full day, and it's a lot of shadow work. It's the stuff that maybe you don't want to see, maybe the stuff that's just been here, just been a little bit hidden from your awareness, but that door is pretty locked. So for me, the only way I can get to that stuff is a little key. And then it's, you know, using all my resources.
What you do is you're giving people the tools, okay? You're not, whereas a lot of people just think you're just giving them the medicine, or that's what they need to be given. Like I said, the medicine for me is, you know, it's the key that unlocks everything, but it's not the biggest part of it all. Like, for me, it is definitely that prior preparation. And that's only something I've realized as part of this conversation in terms of, I was aware that the prior and the post, but I definitely come to the conclusion that it's a work beforehand. That is where the magic happens, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're putting the places where they need to be, the pieces where they need to be. I call it reverse integration sometimes. So we always say you have the journey, you take all the content, and then you integrate it. But I say, no. Why not start by easing the psyche in very gently? You know, the prep part is what I call peeling back the onion. So we start working with the subconscious. We start working through the body. It's going to show us what's already ready to be worked with. There's so much we can do before. And it's almost like when you get to the journey, imagine it like a chessboard, like all of those pieces are primed and they know, and then they'll just move into their new positions. So instead of having to struggle through, you know, an hour of hideous takeoff and battling with your subconscious and your resistance, all of this stuff is just your protective parts trying to keep you safe, because you haven't checked in with them and said, hey, listen, I'm bringing in, you know, 3-4 grams of mushrooms. Are you okay with that? And then there's part of you going, no, what the fuck? I don't want to do that. You know, we've got a month to deal with that and to work with that and to make all parts of you feel comfortable. so that it's kind to the system. It's not abusive to the system and saying, well, I'm going to just take more mushrooms. You know, like that guy you said earlier took 13 grams and nothing happened. That happens all the time because your psyche is not stupid. It can
Not ready.
It can put up the barrier. It can just say, no, absolutely not today. The wonderful thing about mushrooms is they do different things at different doses. And it's discerning, like, okay, what do I need in this moment? What do I need here? And sometimes it is a really big high dose journey once or twice a year, because that will, you know, sometimes we get to a ceiling in our evolution or where we're at, where we can't quite get to that next level or that next, whatever it is, unconscious material that's ready to be uncovered. And it will just break through that ceiling a little bit. And we do need that sometimes. It is important. The rest of the time, gentle as you can possibly go.
It's common sense, because obviously we have all this mysticism surrounding psychedelics. I think sometimes people don't apply logic to it and common sense. Like, you wouldn't run a marathon without training or running a 5K. You wouldn't go and sit an exam without revising, right? So why would you enter into a psychedelic experience taking this huge amount before doing a smaller amount, or not even doing anything and learning more about it, understanding the process, what's going to happen? Like, you would not do it with anything else. You know, if you didn't know how to swim, you certainly wouldn't jump in the pool without armbands on. Yeah. I have absolutely no desire to now ever do it in any community or in a large group setting, ever. Okay. And again, that could just be me and the discomfort I perhaps feel in larger groups because of my own circumstances. But I don't necessarily, and the question I'd ask you is, do you think it needs to be done? What's the benefit of doing it in this communal setting?
Yeah. So the thing is, a lot of the way these circles or these ceremonies are being held is based on how they've been used indigenously. So let's just look at ayahuasca, for example. It's always been used communally because it's part of the community. It's part of their heritage. It's part of their lineage. It's part of their unconscious makeup. So you can't compare the two. You can't compare. And this is a quote from Cheddar, who I had a podcast with before. He said, you cannot compare your tribal setting where you've grown up together, you know each other verbally, non-verbally, unconsciously, you're connected, you're one unit, you've lived that way. You can't compare that to 12 strangers from different countries coming into a room together. So it's nothing wrong with the framework. I'm not criticizing the framework and saying this shouldn't be done in group. I'm saying absolutely amazing that they've got that as part of their lineage. Unfortunately, if you come from a Western, mindset, like all my clients do, like I do, and trying to shove yourself into that paradigm, for me, is very risky. You're inviting in some problems because you're not, first of all, these people don't know each other. You don't know each other. And if we think about everything that happens in a psychedelic journey should point towards safety. It should always be about layering safety upon safety upon safety. And safety happens in the familiar. So first of all, you could be going to a country where you don't know the language, you don't know the food. Number two is you don't know the people. So all these people are coming from different countries, different backgrounds, different trauma histories. Everybody's going to have a trauma history if they're going to a psychedelic journey, to a therapeutic psychedelic container. All of that is shoved into a space, and then the energy is blast wide open. So what will often happen in group settings is there becomes this group energy field that happens. It's like a vortex that happens. And, you're always going to get put next to the person that triggers the shit out of you. Honest to God, always. It's something weird about who you get put next to. And then your perspective on that is what you make it. My perspective is this. I've seen so much dodgy shit go down in group ceremonies that I'm very skeptical of them. And I'm also, this is controversial, mixing genders. I'm not into it, because what I see all the time, and I have women coming to me all the time, because what's happened is they've been in journeys. The men have become quite aggressive, or they're dealing with anger, and that becomes quite vocal and quite loud. And in my experience, men can be louder than women in journey, not all the time, but I have noticed that men can be quite loud. The women then go into their trauma response, whatever that is: fight, flight, flee, fawn, or faint. And I've seen all of these happen. So I've seen women try and leave the space and not be allowed to leave, because this is the rules. Everybody stays in the space. So what's happening there? Nervous system, trauma, all of that from the journey. And what components do I need to feel safe? And we know ourselves, right? I know that I can't be in a room with 100 people puking and shitting into a bucket. No, thank you.
I don't think many can. Would you believe it?
I'm so sensitive. Like, I could not be in that much energy. But there are other people who say, oh, one-to-one's not for me, because I don't like being witnessed. And for me, I'd rather blend into a crowd. I would rather go through this a little bit more anonymously, which I also understand. So, but the majority of my clients who've come out of a journey, one of the first things they say is, can't imagine ever doing that in a retreat.
Really?
Some
Yeah.
people do that. That's the feedback that I get.
Yeah.
Most people that come to me, it's their first journey. I'm kind of set up for that. I'm set up for a really nice first time. I always say it's like having sex, if it's good, it's going to affect the rest of your times, and it's going to make you feel safe and comfortable. If it's bad, it's going to affect the rest of your times, and it's going to have like your first time should be as held and as safe and as loving as you can make it. So that's what I see my job as. But most people say, I could never have done that. How do that? A, with no preparation. B, in a retreat setting.
Yeah.
So
it's because they feel they need it. Again, you're at a point where you feel that something drastic is needed. Something drastic is required. A lot of the times you've tried stuff before that aren't psychedelic and nothing's working. So there's a point of desperation. It just goes back to what we said about that vulnerability. These people, they're at the most vulnerable state. And the fact that at their most vulnerable state, they're then entering into these horrific experiences. It's just a recipe for absolute disaster. And again, how many people out there? We're not hearing the stories. It's very unlikely that you're going to hear about these stories from these people who have had these experiences. They're probably not going to share that ever again. And that is, I think that can really set the stage for I think that's the day. It will set the stage for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
That will impact the rest of their life. They've entered into something trying to better themselves, better their experience, better their life for the good. And what they've done is they've done it. They've probably invested in it. It's cost them money, time, energy, commitment, and they've come out the other side and it's done the exact opposite. And what do you do with that? What do you do with that realization apart from take it upon yourself? You pile the shame on, like we said, and you go, oh, I must be wrong, because how could the medicine be wrong, or how could the experience be wrong? Because this is sacred and it's it's mystical. So that's it's almost, it's what we said again about good and bad. Like, it's got this aura that it can't, what you said, you can't have a bad trip. Yes, you can. I don't think, again, on the other side as well, you have people who might have a really good experience, but then they go back for more. Like, for me, like, the more I do it, the less I need it. Yeah. Right? Like, it's not like, oh, let's dive back into there. Like, not at all. I think if it's really,
I think that's because you're doing the work around it, though, and you are doing it respectfully, and you aren't, you'll come to me like maybe once a year with that niggling, like, shouldn't I? And it's not always a yes. Sometimes it's, God, no, this isn't what I need. This is what I need. I need to sit down and have a nap.
This is the preparation beforehand. I think I've done it with you once before, where we've done a couple of sessions. I've gone, actually, do you know what? That's enough for me.
Yeah, I'm good.
So I think just anyone listening to this, if they are curious about having a psychedelic experience, don't sign up to a psychedelic experience. Don't sign up or commit to taking the medicine. What you should commit to is a bit of preparation. See how it feels and then make the decision from there. You don't have to go all in at the start. Don't say, I'm going to take psychedelics. Say, let me learn more and enter into the process of potential.
That's such great advice. That's such great advice. I'm actually working on a course at the moment to educate about the preparation side. So, because my clients always get a course and I'm stripping out part of it just so I can, offer it to people and say, like, read this, go through this, and this will give you a good idea of a realistic expectation or how you can prepare. Even if you are going to retreat, I'm not saying retreats are bad, but still engaging in that preparation, you're going to get the most out of it. Whatever way you look at this, you're going to get the most out of it. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I think that shame is a huge part of it, because I know for me, I felt so ashamed after I had my bad experiences because, first of all, the stigma that still surrounds drugs and psychedelics.
Point as well, because of the stigma, I think you can't speak to the community about the bad experience, because then you'll be shunned or alienated in certain situations. But then you can't speak to normies, shall we say, people that haven't done it, because it's like, well, you should be taking drugs. Do you know what I mean? And so you're just completely isolated, and it leaves us
isolated.
Yeah,
and that's the trauma that you're probably there to heal in the first place, and it triggers
exactly that.
Triggers all those negative self-beliefs as well of I'm not worthy. That's at the core of all of us, isn't it? That I'm not worthy wound, and then you don't go and get the help that even when you try to get the right help, you might not get the right help. You might not get the thing you need. You need to pick somebody who knows what they're doing, who's an expert in integration, who can hold you and say, it's not your fault. My God, I'm so sorry you went through this. Let's work through it. Let's help to integrate it, whatever happened to you, with no judgment and no shame, because you're probably already piling that, onto yourself.
So that analogy you said, I was just thinking about this as you were speaking about that analogy about scuba diving, because there's similarities. You are diving into the unknown, right?
Totally.
And these, I think they're what petty courses, whatever they're called. These are long courses, weeks-long courses where you prepare. And as you said, you can apply that to anything and everything, any endeavor, any big pursuit. It's training, like you're training yourself. It's preparation. That's what it is, right?
Preparation.
You wouldn't not do it with anything else. Or why the hell would you do it with this? It's common sense, it's logic, and I think in a way, let's demystify. Let's demystify.
Oh, I love this.
Let's leave the mysticism for that experience, for that 4 hours. Because like I said, for me, that's the fun part of it. And sometimes it's not fun. That's the mystical, but that was great. And I saw, whatever. I saw this and I saw that. But after that, like, it's mystical, but you're not part of that. You don't get to be a part of that mysticism, because that's playing in your subconscious. Like, you get a little glimpse, that little glimpse during the session. That's all you got. That's your lot. That's your little sparkly bit. After that, it's like, we're going to now take this away. The experts, the little mushroom gremlins, they're going to take that away, and they're going to do the work in the subconscious. Like, treat it like a therapy, like any other. Treat it like training. Treat it like preparation or an event or a journey. Again, if you're going to go on a journey, what do? You pack, you prepare, you get yourself ready. You make sure you got
backpack on, get your tools in.
Exactly. And what happens if you're not fully prepared? What happens if you go camping, if you get your sleeping bag? You're going to have a shit time. Okay. And it's exactly the same with psychedelics. So,
yeah. Best case scenario, you're covered in mosquito bites and it's annoying. Worst case scenario, you get eaten by a bear. So exactly. You're so right. And talking about it, we all need somebody, we all need that, even if it's just reflection. It's not like you said, it's not giving you anything, it's stripping away. And it's just, sometimes it's just that reflection, like, Olly, can you see yourself clearly? And it's just like wiping that lens and saying, oh God, yeah, there I am again.
This is how I describe it. I feel like I've had a brain scrub. That's what I call it. Again, it's clarity. I'm gaining clarity. I can see what is already there. Like you said, you're putting on the wipers, and it's like, okay. Like, that's the aha moment. The aha moment isn't this untold wisdom that you've downloaded. No, it's like, of course. And it's almost what it is. It's the antithesis of shame. It's not shame. It's that sort of, you idiot, but not in a derogatory way. It's like, of course, that's what you, you are, you silly. It's more of a you silly Billy as opposed to you piece of shit. You know what I mean? Which is the other side of the coin, and which is what, I felt beforehand. So,
yeah, there's a lot of compassion in that voice, though, isn't there? That, like, no, bless you.
You silly again.
How did you not see this? Like, it was right there. How did you not see that this was? But the other funny thing is, and so I have to say, like, the type of experience you have is going to be directly influenced by who you prepare with. So my clients know that when they work with me, they're bound to get an experience that's, the theme is going to be your relationship to yourself. It's always going to be that, because that's how we are priming the psyche, and that's generally what people want when they come to me. They have been prepared in a certain way. It's always going to be like the number one thing that people say is like, God, that was so obvious.
My own experiences I've had with you, like, it's not surprising. Like, there's nothing surprising about it. It's like I think if they were to have an expression, I almost like it's the Mona Lisa smile. Okay, it's that little side, that just little like, told you so.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Exactly what you mean. I know exactly. It's interesting that you say there are no surprises. I think that's so interesting.
You called them once. I'll never forget this. You called mushrooms cheeky, and I think they are. That's exactly that. They're cheeky. They're mischievous.
They poke at you.
Yeah, but if you haven't had the preparation, they're not cheeky. They can
be
menacing. Exactly, it's menacing.
Menacing, right? Exactly. No, you're so right. They kind of test you at the beginning. I think there's a threshold with them that they'll show you, like, the beginning can be a little bit mad and a little bit disorienting, and it's almost like, okay, can you sit with this? And if you can, you get to drop to a level deeper, and it's almost like a video game. The more you can hold, the more self-compassion you have, the more somatic embodiment you have, the deeper you're going to go in these journeys. And it's almost like there can be surprises, but that surprise is hardly ever new information. It can often be something that has happened in your life, but you didn't realize the impact that it had on you, and you get this completely different perspective. Or it's a relationship that you have that's maybe not working. And of course, obviously, like, God, so obvious now, but the amount that we can hide from ourselves is unreal. The amount of things we can suppress and we can deny. Don't underestimate the human capacity for denial. So,
and not even just yourself. Look at what's going. You mentioned it earlier. Look at what's going on in the world. You know, the amount of suffering, the conflict. Like, there's so much to be distracted by, and it's that in itself is ramping up as well. So it's, and this is why I find myself needing to revisit it. I think it's clear, like I said, you shouldn't always go chasing it, but I'm also aware that I will have a constant relationship with psychedelics, because sometimes, and the more I do it, the good thing is I can notice when I'm starting to be distracted.
exactly.
I notice when my attention has been turned, and that's when the niggle comes. It's like, okay, I need that clarity again. I need to see what's really happening here.
And that's not the same as state chasing. That's listening and being tuned in and hearing the whisper. Because whenever somebody comes to me, I'm like, well, why are you here? And they're like, just something is calling me. And it's like, then there'll be some weird coincidences that led them to my door. Like, that's what it is. But I love that you named it as a relationship, because that's what it is. It's not something we're using. It's not something that it's not a pill that we're taking. It's a really rich, complex relationship that we can have with these substances and what they can do for us. And for me, that requires respect and reverence, not worship. I think that's very different. But a hell of a lot of respect, and a hell of a lot of the preparation to me is also paying the respect to this medicine and saying, I know how powerful you are.
And I think that's what's wonderful about the way you do things, is that you tie in, the logic, the sensible side of it as well, but you also add in, a little bit, a little bit of the sacred, giving reverence. But what's wonderful about you is you say, look, I'm going to put the mushrooms there. Okay, you can speak to them, you can pray to them, you can ignore it, but I'm just going to put that here, I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so again, you're not actually directing. You're saying, look, this is what you can do. And then naturally, I find myself going, okay, and I do pay some respect, some homage to it, right?
Also, I really trust your inner healing intelligence, because I know it's in there, and I know everybody has this incredible innate ability to heal. Your soul wants to heal. Your higher self, your subconscious, all of it is desperate to heal. It just needs a few little tools and reflections. And it's all about empowerment. It's all about always deferring back to your wisdom, back to your inner wisdom. And then it's giving you a blank slate. I do quite literally give you a blank slate at the beginning of the journey. It's part of the preparation. So it's a blank slate. It's like, bring in your spiritual beliefs. They're so welcome here. Everything is welcome, but it doesn't come from me. It comes from you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point? It's not about me.
Yeah. Don't do what it's not about doing what you're told to do. It's about doing what you feel is right at the time.
Exactly. And only you know that. I don't know that. So any final thoughts? What would you say to somebody thinking about doing this work, maybe who's hesitant or who's trying to decide, like, what's the best way in?
Again, don't think or try and make a decision about taking psychedelics. I think remove that. That's a big decision to make in of itself. Okay, make the conscious decision to learn more. And I would go further and say, speak to someone like Lena who can give you that preparation, and then see how the preparation feels. If you're interested in taking psychedelics, clearly you're interested about psychedelics. It's such a wonderful subject. It's huge, it's vast, that even just learning about it can teach you so much and give you so much. So remove the taking of the medicine and take a few steps back and just learn more. And through learning about the medicine, you often find more about yourself anyway. Okay. And then if it feels right, I think this is the key thing, is if it feels right, do it. But just because you've invested X amount of time or money into the preparation, it does not mean that you have to take the medicine. Okay. You'll know when you need to.
The longer you can give yourself, the better, because the more layers of that onion will peel back and the more you're going to get out of it. The less suffering you're going to have, the less resistance you're going to have, the less frequently you'll have to do it. And, and I think your advice is great. It's like, take a few steps back, slow it down, realize that we are stuck in our conditioning of now, everything now, bigger, better. And that's going to play out in psychedelics as well. So let's just take a breath.
Take a step back, apply some logic, and do what you would do with absolutely anything else that you show an interest or desire to do, which is prepare or learn about it. As simple as that.
Simple as that, really. All right, Olly, thank you so much. And I will have one final question for you. So I want to ask you, if we could go all the way back to 2022, take yourself back in a time machine, what would you say to that Ollie?
Do you know what? I thought about this, and the thing is, I wouldn't actually say anything to him because I think he needs to learn, and you need to learn the hard way. However, that doesn't mean you have to make it harder than it should be. So I wouldn't say anything to him. I'd probably just give him a hug. I'd give him a hug. I'd give him that Mona Lisa smile, that knowing smile, maybe a cheeky wink, and say, on your way, son. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know what's wonderful about that answer? You sounded like a father.
We've done this before, haven't we? Being kind to little Ollie, and it's it's that self-compassion piece as well, which you could fill up, and I'm sure you will fill up another podcast with, because that is there's so much to unlock that don't involve the psychedelics. Like I said, there's so much people can do without even taking the psychedelics. Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Lots of love to little Ollie and big Ollie, and thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I've really enjoyed it.
You're welcome.